is the Lord was speaking identity into me. Like you were saying, before I ever had the title of pastor, I was pastor in the way that God was speaking that into me. And he wasn't saying you are going to become a pastor. You are going to go and do the things that pastors do. He was saying, Nick, you are a pastor. And he was actually revealing something to me of the very nature that he made me to be, but I misunderstood it as an assignment that I needed to go and do.
Yeah.
And we start to step into this performance mentality versus, I think, a quick aside, anytime we hear a word from the Lord or anytime somebody delivers a word over us, one of the best things that we could do, in fact, our first step, is to bring that thing back to the Lord and go, okay, now what? What do you want to say about this?
Discern it.
Yeah, which ultimately that's what the Lord was calling me to in the car when I was crying out after that doctor's appointment, realizing, wait a second, me pursuing all these things, me doing and performing in all these ways is actually driving me into the ground, and I can't sustain this. After the fact, it looked actually pretty similar to what I was doing before, but the motivator was much different. I wasn't trying to work my way into something because of comparison. I was living out the identity that God had instilled in me. And I don't know, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think we should all just assume that we are going to naturally compare ourselves to other people. Mm-hmm. We don't try to avoid never comparing ourselves, and we'll get to kind of like what do we do when that comparison comes? It's really more is guarding your heart against it and training ourselves against it. For me, growing up, like I had insecurities. I compared myself to so many different people. That was just like, it was just such a part of my life. So then when I got into ministry, and then I got into pastoring, and we were working together, there's so many times that like I would compare myself to you, and then you would preach, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, that was just so amazing. I need to, preach like that. You know what I mean? Or I need to teach like that. Or we'd be in a ministry moment together, and you'd give her this word, and I'm like, man, am I ever going to be able to deliver a word like that? You know what I mean? It's like just crazy how you're doing the work of the ministry with one of your closest friends. Yeah. And all the while you're insecure, the devil's just like in your mind, like you're not as good as him. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I was never angry at you or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just the comparison game.
I was angry at you.
You were angry at me.
So many times.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
But seriously. It wasn't supposed to be like a funny, but seriously, when you get into comparison, it's an easy thing that can happen.
You get frustrated with people. Yeah. And not whatever people, you just with situations.
Oh, completely.
And I would imagine other people feel that way too. You have your closest friends, and your closest friends are maybe going to college, and you're not in college, and you're comparing yourself. They have their life together. They are in a relationship. They're getting married, and you're comparing yourself and your story to other people, not realizing that like God has you where you are. Mm-hmm. God has me where I am, and it's not my job to become like other people. It's my job to be who I am called to be, and to search out Christ, and to say, God, like make me content with where I am and who I am, like so that my life can mean the most. And if that doesn't measure up to my carnal standards, then so be it. My life is not my own.
My carnal standards are there to die anyway.
Yeah,
I need to put these things to death, and a lot of this includes dying to ourself as we are dying to the aspect of comparison. We're dying to the false self that we have built through all the comparison we've done in the past, right? Like where we are today.
Hit on that. You said the false self. Let's sit there, because that's where I think some comparison draws. That's how comparison draws us into the game. Mm-hmm. It's because we have a false expectation of what we're supposed to be.
Oh, I mean, this goes all the way back to the original fall. Right? The original sin in Satan coming in, challenging Adam and Eve in the very area that they were just affirmed in. God had just created them in his image and likeness. And now Satan's coming in and starting to challenge them. Oh, you're not really like God, is essentially what he was saying. God knows you'll be like him if you eat this fruit. And he's just doing these small things to twist and skew and break that image down. And it's still the same today, that this false self that Satan's trying to build up, that society's trying to build up, that the flesh is trying to build up of who we think we need to be, is typically built through years of comparison, right? As we're growing up through life, we're starting to observe and make sense of reality with our young minds. We're looking at who is successful,
Who are our heroes?
who is beautiful, who is, popular, who are the heroes. We start building up these idols, is what Scripture calls them, of pictures of who it is I'm supposed to be. And then now we go through life and we're gauging where I am based off of all these different people that we think fit that model, right? So when I was in the same spot and still am in many ways, but I approach it differently now, which we'll talk about later. But when I watch you preach, when I watch you, especially like when you started like hitting your stride and finding your voice, everybody knows it's powerful, super powerful. And I would just sit there watching you and go, oh, I don't preach like that. I don't break my messages down in that structure. And I'm just in awe of just the way that you're able to break I can't speak for under an hour. It's very difficult for me. And you're like, here's, 17 different hard hitting points in 10 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, I need to be like that. And it's like, well, do I?
Yeah.
But it's because I started seeing you fitting into this false self that I had built up. You were just one of the people that started to line up with the idols of my life that I've built. And it's very easy for me to start comparing myself against you. And we do that all over the place within social media. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. Social media is showing us what the good life is, and we build that up, and then we find anybody that fits that image, and then we compare ourselves to it. Or we try and create the image and get other people to compare themselves to us, and that's that comparison game. And it's Satan's one of his biggest traps that he gets us in.
Huge trap. It's a huge trap. And let's start getting into solutions. Let's start getting into, like people are in it, they feel in it. Like what are the things that have brought us out of the cycle of comparison? Not that we're out of it and that we're out of the game. We're still in the game.
Completely.
What are the things that we've found to be successful in helping us see each other, but also to see like just the world differently?
Yeah. Going back to that testimony that I was sharing in the car, right? The Lord started calling me into a journey of, once again, realizing that the word that he had spoken in it goes beyond just this singular word. I'm only using this as kind of a platform to talk about what the Lord's been doing in my life and what he wants to do for all of us. He was getting me to realize, wait a second, he's not calling me into performance. He's speaking identity into me. And in one of the best ways, and really actually ultimately the only way to overcome the comparison trap, is to root ourselves in the identity of Christ. But even that's a tricky slope, right? Because we have this picture that also needs to be almost demolished, and we need to spend time within the Scriptures. We need to go into the Word and specifically looking at the person of Jesus, seeing who he is across the pages of Scripture, across the pages of all of Scripture, because he's being revealed across all of it.